Hello, I'm Mr.TieDye, and today I'm going to show you how to fold a dragon scale design on your t-shirt. So what I usually do is start out, my favorite way is to turn the shirt inside out and to center it, and in some cases draw a line down the middle of the t-shirt so I know where the middle is. And since I'm going to be using sinew for this design, I also have the t-shirt soaked in soda ash and it's dry. So after I soak them, I just hang them up, let them dry. And that way when you cinch it down really tight, the dye is still going to soak in nicely. So to start with, what I'm going to do is fold the sleeves in just a little bit, just because I find it's easier to tie this design if the sleeves aren't in your way. And then I'm just going to take the edge of the t-shirt and fold it up to this center line. So keep that, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'll fold the sleeve in a little bit to make that edge straight, and then I'll fold that line in to the middle. And you want to kind of check on your sleeves. You don't want to fold them all the way in. There's a little bit of a gap, because if you fold it in, then that's going to create a bunch, a wrinkle there where I'm going to have multiple layers. So you want to fold your sleeves just a little bit, just enough to get them to the inside. So this here is the middle of my t-shirt. I'm going to fold it one last time in half. And like I say, the sleeves, that's going to be a thicker area of the t-shirt, but it's just the way that it works out. From there, you can, sometimes I've measured this out, marked my lines, but really you can just wing it. So what I'm going to do is just draw a zigzag line going down the shirt all the way, and then that's where I'm going to tie my sinew at. So for the sinew, I'm going to tie a little slip knot to start with, just because that helps me keep it in place where I want it. And then we'll fold this back a little bit so that you can see the center spot. I'll zoom in, and I'm just going to line my sinew up along that first line. Once I get enough out. And then the nice thing about the sinew is if you kind of hold the t-shirt flat and you pull on it, the wrinkles or the creases, the folds will create themselves, but you do have to hold it flat or it'll just bunch up into a big wad. So once I have it kind of tightened up, and here I'm just pulling with my hand, but once I have it nice and tight, then you want to make sure that you're not trying to pull with your hand. You have something, I got sinew, it's wrapped in one of these thick cardboard tubes that the sinew comes on. You can also use a broomstick. But I'm going to wrap this around. Let's flip it 3 times. That seems to be the magic number. At least 3 times. Once you have that, then I'm going to hold this in place, and I'm going to pull the sinew so that that gets nice and tight in there. And you can see that's nice and tight in there. And if you need to, you can wrap that up a little bit, give yourself more leverage, pull a little bit more. And then from that point, you're just going to keep working down the shirt. So I'll kind of straighten this out a little bit. Take my sinew, and I'm going to lay it right along this next line here that I drew. And for there, once again, if you hold the t-shirt kind of flat and you pull, some of those folds will form themselves. And I try to keep the sinew tucked up in this crease here where I have the shirt folded at. And then I'll wrap it around there the 3 times. And then let's zoom back out. We'll pull that nice and tight again. And I'm just going to work my way all the way down the t-shirt. So I'll just wrap it. Usually I'll wrap it around 1 time and pull it while it's laying here flat to create the folds. Let's see if I can do that without holding it. You just have to kind of adjust them a little bit, but the folds will about form themselves on some of these. And then I tighten it up. Well, I wrap it 3 times. And then I tighten it. So I'm just going to go all the way down. And you can help some of the folds along to get them in the places where you want them. Okay, now that I got to the bottom, what I'm going to do is snip this off. Like I say, I always like to leave that nice tail at the bottom. And I'm going to wrap that up, tie a little knot in it. How I dye the dragon scale design on the tee. So, as you remember from my tie-in video, what I did is I just zigzagged back and forth, and I tied each one of the lines that I put on there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight those lines. And once again, you can use any colors you like. Today I'm going to highlight with black. So I'm just going to go along each one of those lines. And this one here is not wanting to soak in. Whenever it doesn't want to soak in right, I have a spray bottle with just soda ash in it, and I'll kind of lightly mist the t-shirt. And that helps break the tension and allow the dye to start penetrating quicker than just letting it sit there and bead up on the top. So once you've done that, then I'm just going to dye along each one of these lines. And you want to come back at least once or twice to go over these lines just to make sure the dye is soaked down in, because remember, we're dyeing several layers of the t-shirt. We folded it in half and in half and in half, so it's got several layers. The other thing is to make sure that you wipe up underneath, because not all of the dye wants to soak right into the t-shirt. So if you notice that, remember to wipe it up so you don't have a mishap like I did in my last video tying to the lotus flower mandala. I got purple where I didn't want it. So I'm going to dye each one of these lines. Once I dye this side, I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do the same thing on the back side. And then I'll probably go over each one of the lines one more time just to make sure that enough dye has soaked down in. So this is just zigzagging back and forth where the sinew is. I always keep a bunch of rags on hand to wipe up any kind of messes. So let's see, we'll zoom in a little bit. So what I'm doing is just dyeing right along the sinew. And some of it spreads out, but that just adds, I think, to the magic of the design. I always feel like the universe has to have their say in the t-shirt. You can have so much control, but not total control. So for me, that's what tie-dye is controlling the parts that I can and allowing the universe to take over the other parts. And you have to be okay with that. Well, you don't have to, but I am. I'm okay with that. Okay. So I think I'm getting plenty of dye down inside. And what that's going to do is highlight each one of the dragon scales. These ones here are going to go across the t-shirt, each one of these lines. So once I'm done with the black, then I'm going to go through, and this one I chose to use fire colors on. So I'm going to start with my lightest yellow, which is my lemon yellow from Dharma. And I'm just going to go through and just squirt each one of these sections of the shirt, either side of the black line. I have done rainbow ones where I've colored each one going up the t-shirt a different color. I've also colored the different lines in rainbow colors. So there's lots of ways that you can dye it. So I say tie up a pattern and maybe tie it up 4 or 5 times on different t-shirts, and then sit down and dye it different ways and see which ways you like it. Tie-dye is a lot about experimentation. Sometimes seeing something is going to make a determination whether you like it or not. So I'm just dyeing all of this in my lightest yellow, and then I'm going to go back over and use a dark yellow on it, and then I'm going to put a little bit of orange on it, and that'll be my fire dragon scale t-shirt. So once I get all the way up to the top here, then we'll flip it over. We'll do the same colors on the other side. I usually apply them one color at a time though. So I'll get yellow, this yellow on both sides. And then I'll start with my other colors. So I think for now, that's all I need to say about the dyeing of the shirt. We're going to go ahead and fast forward through the rest of it. Okay, and the vinyl design that I'm opening today is the dragon scale tee, or design. This one is wrapped with sinew, so you just find that tail again and just start unwrapping. It comes off of here pretty easily. And sinew is one that you always want to unwrap it rather than cut it, because it's pulled so tightly. If you tried to get scissors underneath it, I think you would cut a hole in the shirt. I did have one time that the sinew broke on me, so what I had to do, I used a seam ripper, and I was able to get under just one of the strands of sinew and was able to cut it, but that was a little nerve-wracking. So always try to not break your sinew and leave yourself a tail that you can grab and unwind the sinew. Alright, we're down at the end with the slip knot. Now we'll get this opened up. And there is the dragon scale. Thank you for watching.